Three, two, one. Hello, universe. I have a little story for you. When I was 7, my parents moved from Houston, Texas to Minneapolis, Minnesota. We were new in town, and I was lucky to have a lot of children my age in my neighborhood. There was one little girl down the street. Her name was Melanie. She was about my age, and her mom, Lisa, was a single mom who was financially struggling. Even as a little girl, I could see Lisa's confidence start to diminish as their bills piled up and their clothes grew old. One spring day, Melanie's mom knocked on our door. Her hair was coiffed, there was a new spring in her step, and as she was telling my mom how she had just embarked on a new business, Lisa was starting to sell products door to door. Now, I can't remember exactly what the products were, but what I do know is that Lisa had joined a direct selling company. Whenever I would go over to Melanie's house subsequently, somehow we got roped into helping her pack her packages. This is back when receipts were written on carbon papers. She was thriving. And that really resonated in my little girl mind because I had seen how much Lisa's life had changed and subsequently my friend Melanie's. You see, Lisa walked taller, had new clothes, a shiny fancy car, her economic situation improved, but more importantly, her sense of self-worth, confidence, and power became enviable to many others in the neighborhood. That's the power of taking life into your own hands. And frankly, I think the appeal of probably joining a direct selling business or even becoming an entrepreneur. So today we're chatting with Milind Pant, who's the global CEO of Amway, which is the #1 direct selling business on the planet. In 2020, Amway did $8.5 billion in sales. They have more than 1 million Amway business owners. They have more than 15,000 employees internationally. They have more than 60 languages spoken at Amway. And Amway is in over 100 countries and territories with over 400 unique products manufactured. Chances are you've probably seen them and more likely even used them. Last year, Milind Pant became the first non-family member to run the Amway business since its founding and inception in 1959. Before Amway, Milind was president of every Desi family staple, Pizza Hut. And before that, he spent 14 years with Unilever in a variety of executive roles, including vice president for foods for Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. So hi, Milind.
Hi, it's great to be with you this afternoon.
Nice to see you. So I have to ask, where are you Zooming from?
I'm at home in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and normally my work entails a lot of international travel, but for the last year we've been all adapting.
We have been. There's so much I want to talk to you about, but before we get into everything, I do have to touch on Pizza Hut.
Great.
What? I just have to know from a guy who's probably tried every pizza topping, what is your ideal pizza topping?
My pizza topping, or the pizza that I love the most, is the pizza with cottage cheese or paneer, which is
Ah,
there in
that sounds
India, and there's also tandoori chicken which competes with it. But there are the pizza recipes across the world that appeal to local taste.
yeah, so interesting. Well, speaking of products, let's talk about Amway products. So I was lucky enough to have you all send me a bunch of your products, which I'm excited to try some of them. First of all, have you tried all of them at this point?
One of the things I did even before I joined Amway, we were living in Dallas at that point of time, was to go check out the products, and we ordered them as customers. And I still remember as they landed up, my younger son and I finished off all the gummies, the multivitamin gummies, and
Which
my
are
wife.
right here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there are so many of them. One of the things
Yes.
that was fascinating, and it's a best kept secret in Amway, is we've got 6,000 acres of organic farms
Hmm.
across Brazil, Mexico, and Washington State here in America. And so all these, I mean, organic farming and sustainability is like mainstream now, but Amway's been doing it for decades.
Um, I think there's one product you may have not tried, which I'm going to
Okay.
try, which is a lip gloss. Have
Lip
you
gloss.
tried the lip?
It's a great one. It's a lighter lip gloss, and I think you probably got the pink.
I did. Why? What color do you use, Milind? Okay, so this lip gloss, which I kind of love, is this a mirror that's on this side? Oh,
Yeah, it
that's
is.
cool. Okay, that's cool. I'm gonna try it. Sorry, radio family, but this is more reason for you to come onto my YouTube channel. It's pretty. Look at that. What do you think, Milind?
I think
I
it's
think
looking
it's
great.
good. I have been dying to try some of this. So this looks really good. This is the sparkling magnesium sparkling water.
That's right. I've got one with me. We've launched these last month, so they're all new. I
What
mean,
flavor do you have? I
I
have
have.
pomegranate acai and I have tangerine mango. I think I'm going to try the tangerine mango.
Go ahead.
Okay. What's your favorite, Milind? What are you sipping on?
I'm just sipping
Mm.
sparkling with just magnesium in it. So this is the pure.
Oh,
Yeah,
what does that taste like?
it tastes well. It
Just like
tastes
water.
great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes. This is actually really good. And it has magnesium. Oh, and electrolytes. Mm.
So
Okay.
they've all got functional benefit in addition to being sparkling. That's the point of differentiation, and they're all manufactured here in a plant in Ada, Michigan, close to where I live.
Well, here's what I also really enjoyed about the assortment that you all sent me. So I imagine, so I live here in the US, as my audience knows. I would not be able to necessarily get these though, right?
No, you won't be able to get these because these are traditional. They're actually a combination of traditional Chinese medicine and
Yeah.
Western science put together. And these are available in China, which is our largest market across the world.
Yeah, so for my radio audience, there is this Mandarin that's written on here. My
It
son
is.
would be like,
It is
"Yes, okay."
Mandarin.
I'd need him as a translator because I made him take Mandarin, and he's very upset. He wishes I let him take Japanese because he loves anime. But c'est la vie. If that's the worst thing I did to you, you're still okay.
That's
Uh,
that's gonna be a bit of an acquired taste.
is it? That's what I was going to ask you. So, should I try? I mean,
Yeah, go
like, what do you
ahead.
mean? Okay, go.
So,
It's good. It
all
tastes
right,
just
there you
like,
go.
yeah, it's super good. It's a vitamin C gummy. Okay, people, as you hear me chew, it's good. um, you know what? You're a pretty adventurous guy. I think we have that in common. Like I don't mind trying new foods. You've traveled a lot, as you said, but I think it's time to sort of take your story back because, when I Google stalked you and I've
Right.
been reading about your history and I kind of look back on your trajectory of really your life and your career, you're an adventurer, Milind, which is I just think everyone needs to hear this story of you starting out in this small town on the foothills of the Himalaya. And let's start your story there. Paint the picture of what that was like and how you grew up.
I think one just got lucky in
Mm,
life. When I was growing up in India at that point of time, till my teenage years, we didn't even have a television at home. Air conditioning was out of the question. It was just too expensive. I think what we had in abundance at that point of time was love in the family and a set of family values, which you'd be familiar with, and many of your listeners would be familiar with. It's called sanskar or the North Star in Indian families. So just do the right thing. Work hard, study hard, and the rest will take care of itself in life. I was fortunate to get a chance to join Unilever in India, which was almost like my second MBA. But my first stint there, Alexandra, which I was thinking could be perhaps to be a brand manager for a Dove or a Lipton iced tea or some Wall's ice cream. I actually went to the exports business. Unilever at that time in India made leather shoes for exports. Now, don't ask me why a Anglo-Dutch multinational made leather shoes, but they did. And I was sent to my first assignment when I joined Unilever was to go to leather tanneries
Oh,
and source semi-processed leather. So I
wow.
spent the first 2 years in Unilever in tanneries that were 100, degree Fahrenheit, humid, chrome tanned leather, helping sort them out and thinking to myself, is this what I did my MBA for? And I thought my
Doesn't
career.
sound glamorous, but I have to say, you must have had really good shoes. Where did you at least have good shoes?
I had good shoes, and this is how karma is. The Wheel of Life, the main company that we were exporting to was Wolverine, Hush
Ah.
Puppies. And
Oh,
where is
yeah.
Wolverine based? Based very close to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Where we
Wow.
live,
Talk about
this was,
full circle.
it's come a full circle. At that time, it was. But here's the fascinating thing. Today, all of us talk about growth mindset
Yes.
and Carol Dweck's concept, of being a continuous learner, being uncomfortable with the status quo, seeing every opportunity, every challenge as a learning opportunity. That's what happened to me at that time. Leather was short in India. So we said, holy cow, now where do we go and find leather? And this was pre-internet, right?
Right.
So I landed up in China. So my first country I visited outside of India was not to go to England or come to America, not to New York City or Miami. It was to go to Shenzhen in
Wow. And
China.
back then,
It was a fishing village.
oh
Today,
my God.
Shenzhen is 15 million people, all of bustling cities. It's the headquarters of Tencent and many other companies. But we went to Tencent. I went to many small Chinese towns and was so inspired by the bustling energy of the people there. And I became a lifelong student of China. But first 25 years, Alexandra, in my life, I really hadn't stepped outside.
Did you have a passport?
The first time I got a passport was when I went to China, right? I mean, it
Wow.
was too expensive to travel. We couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And then in the next 25 years, one had the good fortune to travel to more than 50 countries across the world, live in 3 continents, live in 5 countries. So my work then took me to Durban, South Africa. It took me to Bangkok, Thailand. We lived in Shanghai, and then of course came to Dallas, and now in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it's been a fascinating journey. Something that I always encourage people to just keep their arms wide open and let things come and soak it all in.
Yeah, what an incredible journey you've had. I mean, like you said, I mean, you did this also with kids and a wife. Let's talk about that because I think a lot of people, if never before, that what the pandemic has certainly brought to attention is like this focus on it's always we focus on what we can't have. And right now we can't travel. Even if you were a big traveler or not before, it seems like we're all obsessed with this idea of like being able to go somewhere where we can't right now. And I think a lot of people would love to be more adventurous, whether it's through their career, taking a position in a different state, a different country, to just traveling. What was it like though with kids and a wife and all of that?
It was great. My sons are both grown up. My older one is now in graduate school, and my younger one is in high school. So we got to get really good time spent together. I think the happiest was our dog Tyra, because she and I, when I used to travel and have jet lag and wake up at 3 4 a.m. in the morning, she would be the one who would give me unconditional love and company. And she just had last 12 months were just fantastic. But it was really good spending time at home. I did miss not being able to meet my parents who live in India. So that was the downside. But otherwise, the last 12 months, even though they've been very difficult for millions of people across the world and have been uncertain, in a way, they've led to more bonding in our family. And they've helped me get closer to my sons, knowing that they'll soon be going their way. So
Yeah.
this is in some sense the last hurrah of us together.
Yeah. Yeah. I did stalk your Instagram, which people, Milind on Instagram is actually super charming. You have to follow him. And
Thank you.
I learned a fun fact. So I think you were playing chess with one of your sons,
Yes.
and you really somebody commented something about the history of chess, and you started talking about how chess was actually from India. Is that true?
That is true. I mean, there are so many. There are, the cultural, richness of India and China goes back 4-5 thousand years. Actually, between Persia, the Persian civilization, the Indian civilization, and the Chinese civilization, along with the Greek. These were the main civilizations in the world. Even when it comes to wellness, Alexandra, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
of course look at all the science and efficacy today, working with the Stanford School. But as much as we go back to Charak Samhita, which was written in 400 BC, or Huangdi, which is the Yellow Emperor's chronicles, which were put down on paper in 300 BC. So there is so much richness that we can go back and look at ancient civilizations, and then of course combine it with what we know in scientific methods today, so that we can provide people solutions to live a happier, healthier life.
Yeah, but I mean, we're all wondering who's better at chess, you or your son?
Oh, my son beats me at everything now.
Ah, are you guys good or is there rivalry? Because I had to break up a fight between my husband and my son when it came to they've been playing NBA 2K.
Right. No, I think my son beats me hands down in everything we play, be it ping pong or chess. I think the only thing I beat him in is cricket,
Yeah,
because he's more used to baseball and football, American
right,
football, and
right.
I can still, play better with my cricket bat than he does.
That's really funny. You know, working together obviously is an important skill as an executive and a leader. And, the thing that people just talk about the cultural differences moving from one company to another in the Bay Area.
Right.
Milind, you have led global businesses where understanding local cultures is really do or die for the success of your bottom line, but also keeping things global at the same time. I think that's a really unique skill set. How did you do that? How do you think about that? Being global but being local. Where's the boundary, or how do we even wrap our head around all of that?
That's a great question. And during the pandemic, and especially last year, one had a chance to reflect on something you just said, because I mean there are 200 nations in the world. I've just traveled to 50, so I've got another 150 to travel to, in hopefully in the coming years. Um, the more we travel, the more we can enjoy and celebrate the differences, right? And not see them, or not be afraid of them, or not be surprised by them. But here's the beauty of it all, Alexander. In my humble view, people are more similar than different across the world. We take entrepreneurship. Everyone across the world, the story that you just shared of Lisa, that
Mhm.
story can be in Seoul, Tokyo, Taipei, Guangzhou. It can be in Calcutta, Moscow, Kiev, Buenos Aires, anywhere in the world, Monterey. Everywhere there is a Lisa who is looking for doing better, getting more confidence, taking care of her family, wanting better for her kids than for herself, and be perhaps taking care of her parents and her neighbors. Everyone loves their food and cuisine, and they think it's the most special in the world. They love their sports team, they love their music, they love their movies, right? And they again think it's the most special one in the world. These are just common. So while we may at times look different or have different, languages or some different preferences, underneath there is a universal humanity which is very similar, and a desire to do well for oneself and for one's loved ones is also very universal. So I find that really inspiring as I travel across the world and experience different cultures.
Yeah, when you were brought on, which first of all, when you were brought on to Amway, um, it's really interesting that they brought the first non-family hire. So that's pretty incredible to begin with. And you went on something, did you call it a listening tour? Is that what
Yeah,
you called it? Yes. So tell us about what you uncovered during that tour and what that was like, because it was pre-pandemic. So you had no idea.
that is true. And like you said, I was very grateful to get the Amway opportunity. And 3 years back, Alexandra, we hadn't heard of Grand Rapids. If someone said, point out Grand Rapids on the map, we would have said, really? Like, where is that? Detroit, yes. Chicago, yes. But Grand Rapids? But here we are living in Grand Rapids and thoroughly enjoying ourselves. It's truly pure Michigan. It's spring now. I spent my formative years, Alexandra, in the what I call the Lake District of India. So in the foothills of the Himalayas,
Yeah.
there are a couple of towns called Nainital, Bhimtal. Tal means lake. And now we move to Michigan, where there is a lake every 10 miles. And every lake is bigger and beautiful than what I grew up with. So it's a great part of the country. Again, a very well kept secret in America. But to your question, um, when I came into this role, I knew the first thing I have to do is to listen and to learn. It's a new industry from where I've been before. I've been with consumer goods, and then I've been with the restaurant industry with Unilever and with Yum. But here I am in an industry which is driven by entrepreneurs. It's a new set of categories. This whole thing about wellness, nutrition, organic farming is relatively new for me. And then it being such an international business, which is getting changed because of digital and what's happening across the world with e-commerce and social platforms is also new. So what we did is I said, okay, in the first 100 days, my team and I, let's just go and learn. So we learned from everywhere, but we focus on three areas. The first is to learn from the entrepreneurs themselves. We call them Amway Business Owners or ABOs. So I traveled to 7 or 8 markets across the world, China twice, met entrepreneurs, listened to them, spent time with them. One of the most inspiring ones I remember was a lady called Makiko San. We met in Tokyo, and she said, Milind, why don't we get together and cook some Indian food in Tokyo? So she made
Wow.
basmati rice and lentil soup and tandoori chicken. And I said, all right, let's get together and cook. And then she shared how she is looking at building a business going forward, which today is called in our strategy moving from direct selling to social commerce. But really, the spark of the idea came not from within some consulting firm, not from McKinsey, but it came from Bakiko, not McKinsey. So that was one area we focused on. The second thing we did was we went out to learn from other technology companies. So we went to Google, Gopi Kalyalil, who I've known for a while. He hosted us, spent a whole afternoon with us. Then we went to Alibaba in Hangzhou, China, learned from them and from many other companies. But we went outside and learned from outside in on what was happening in this whole area of technology, how it was coming together, how we could use it to help our entrepreneurs succeed. And the third thing I did is I reached out to my gurus and my mentors over the years. So I reached out to Indra Nui. I reached out to David Novak, who had been the co-founder and CEO of Yum for a long, long time. I reached out to Vindy Banga, who I knew from my days in Unilever. I reached out to Ram Charan, the management guru, and many other people, just to get their perspective on what should I be doing. As like you said, I'm the first non-family CEO. I'm new to the industry. I want to make sure I listen and learn and absorb as much as I can. And once I'd done that, then we had a global conference where 2,000 of our biggest and our largest leaders from across the world came in. And I had a chance to share the North Star, which we call A70. It's a 10-year North Star, which A70 is a 70th year celebration, which will be in 2029. So we all met together. You know, you mentioned earlier about the number of languages. When I spoke in that convention, it was consecutively translated in 24 languages.
Wow.
Because it was such an international and global audience. But I learned so much in those 100 days, and I continue to learn every day, including the story that you shared at the start of this podcast. That was really touching. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's something that always really sat with me. And I think an interesting place to maybe share with our audience who may not actually be familiar with direct selling and how it works. Maybe you can explain to our audience how someone could get involved with direct selling or just how the business model works currently.
I'll be happy to do that. It's actually pretty simple. Today, all one needs to be a direct selling entrepreneur or an Amway business owner is three things. Need a passion. It could be a passion for beauty, a passion for fitness, a passion for cooking or parenting or wellness. Need a positive attitude. That's important. And need a mobile phone. As long as one has these three things, a passion, a positive attitude, and a mobile phone, one joins a community which is leader led, and we provide the products, the platform, the training, the incentive plan, everything for a person to get on her journey. It's almost saying that today, to be a creator, a health and beauty creator, is getting democratized. And Amway, as it is building and transforming itself going forward, is offering the opportunity for anyone, anytime, anywhere to be a creator. And one doesn't need 1 million followers or 100,000. Even if one has 100 to 1,000 followers, a community around their authentic passion, we will help monetize that passion and convert that passion into profits.
Yeah. And I mean, generally, the way I view direct selling, it's like entrepreneurship out of a box. So
Yes.
there's like, in my mind, two ways to sort of start a business. Like, one, you have to figure out the market, what product you want to create, get outside financing. There's a lot of moving pieces. And when you work with the direct selling company, a lot of that infrastructure is kind of already built for you. And like you said, you get to have a new community. So in the case of my friend's mom, Lisa, she was going door to door back in the day. And now what you're saying is for that's transforming. And that must have been, was that something that had been happening before the pandemic? Or do you think like, because the way I see it is the pandemic has really accelerated so much adoption of technology and new shopping habits. Like my parents could have been ordering Whole Foods and Amazon to their door for years, but it was because of the pandemic that really I've even seen their behavior accelerate. So I'm sure that's what you sort of saw globally as well, right?
Well, you said it. What the pandemic has done, it has accelerated trends. In our case, it accelerated three mega trends, Alexandra. One is it's accelerated the trend towards health and wellness and a holistic health and wellness. Second, it accelerated a trend towards online.
Mm-hmm.
And the third, it accelerated a trend about having the flexibility and the freedom to follow one's passion and make supplemental income. These three got accelerated, and these are, in some sense, the sweet spot for Amway. And I think you said it. It's an entrepreneurship in a box. It doesn't require capital. It doesn't require some special professional qualifications. All one needs is a passion, a positive attitude, and a mobile phone. And you can get started today.
So I think, like, thinking back, I think sometimes people were sort of turned off by direct selling because they felt uncomfortable knocking on someone's door, and in a way that felt very antiquated, especially as millennials started, going online more and things like that. I mean, I tried to get life insurance. Well, I did get life insurance when my son was born, and when the guy came, he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And I was like, why are you in my house? Because it felt so weird for millennials. And so it's exciting to see direct selling companies start to find ways for creators to be able to sell products that, that they have ownership to some extent in, which is really sort of interesting. But, why do direct selling companies sometimes get a bad rap? Like, when people sort of sometimes associate that, like, what are they thinking, and how is that different at Amway?
I think that's a great question. And the way I I would I always look at this is to look at it from what the Amway entrepreneurs are doing today.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a couple of examples and a couple of stories. There is Pramila in Mumbai. And 2 years back, when I met Pramila, she and her husband, they've been building the Amway business, and she was very unsure about Instagram. She was on it. She had a couple of hundred followers. She wasn't sure how it will all turn out. We help provide her some tools and some training of a program we've got called Creators. Today, I haven't checked lately, but I think Pramila has over 70,000 followers on
Wow.
Instagram.
Pramila, can you help me?
74,900. And
Wow.
our latest video on cooking food, healthy, nutritious food, got over 2 million views.
Wow.
When we asked Pramila said, what happened? How did you make that video? She said, I can't really point you towards one thing that I did, but what I'm doing is like what you do, authentically live my passion and authentically be able to be the mom, be the entrepreneur, be the businesswoman she is, all of that combined. So, Alexander, is one example. There is Angelica Shatulina in Moscow. I talked about Makiko-san in Tokyo. There is Shushin Ru in Shanghai. There is Claudia in Bogota. There is Danilo in a small city called Sumaré in Brazil. All of them are different from each other. They have different passions and interests. They have different personalities. Amway is a part of what they do, and what people are drawn up to them is their authenticity. And they start with social first and commerce next. At times, in direct selling in the past, many entrepreneurs started with commerce first, transaction first, and social came as an afterthought. The best entrepreneurs start with social, trusting relationships first and get to commerce or sales almost as an afterthought later, almost as a natural thing in terms of providing beauty solutions, providing wellness solutions, providing fitness solutions, which are right for that person.
I think you hit on two important points. One, I think the advent of social media has provided a lot more transparency. And I think the thing that transparency provides is a lot more trust, to your point. When someone looks like you, when someone has some of the same habits as you, I mean, and also, frankly, if something goes wrong, you can put them on blast equally. So that's the other thing. And then the other point that you bring up, which I think is such an important point, and why I think direct selling has always been a space that I've been watching over the years because people, for all the pitiful numbers we see in terms of women representation in business, direct selling is the one place by numbers and by dollar signs women rule. So, and I don't think it's an accident, Milind, that your superstars that you're talking about are females, because I think there's something really sort of interesting there. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Why do
Well,
you think that females are like, I mean, you know what? Tell us the numbers. Isn't it like some 75% of Amway uh, business owners are female, or is that not? What are the
well,
numbers?
well, yeah, women rule, period. I mean, that's just the
Thank
reality.
you.
Yeah. And in our business, a number of my colleagues, for example, in the global leadership team, of which I'm a part, in Amway, it's majority women now. The men are kind of in the minority in our own leadership, the corporate leadership team. And among our entrepreneurs, the vast majority are women. Rather, the India team calls it Nari Shakti, or literally women power. One of our best businesses across the world is in Korea. Korea, as you know, is a nation of 50 million people. We have $1 billion business in Korea,
Wow.
and 90% of our entrepreneurs in Korea are women.
Wow.
Close to 80% of our entrepreneurs in Russia are women. So across the world, um, this this is a great opportunity for everyone: men, women, couples, families. But when it comes to flexibility, especially when it's getting to online increasingly, it provides women even more flexibility and an opportunity which they value than men. And men, but especially women, are truly great at building communities around trust first, around empathy first. So that comes on, and our business is powered by men and women across the world, but in many markets, it is the women who are truly powering their success and the success of Amway.
Yeah. I've seen it. So I know. And like I said, with my friend's mom, Lisa, there's something transformative when you feel like you can own your own destiny. And I think the other thing people have to realize about direct selling, there might be some judgers out there listening, is that, not everyone wants to make $30,000 a month.
No.
Just making even a couple thousand extra can make a big difference in a family's life, especially when it is kind of low stress in that way. So I think that's really interesting too. You hit on a few things that I think is worth noting, and I'm actually interested about you because you've talked about social media, and because of the pandemic, um, there's been words we put to this now called upskilling, right? I think you and me, Milind, are kindred spirits in that we both love to learn, we love to read, but now I think we talk about things like upskilling. And honestly, social media is upskilling for a lot of people. And watching how charming you are on your Instagram, what was that like for you? Did you feel like nervous about putting yourself out there? Like, how did you get comfortable from someone who maybe wasn't a big poster on social media to now it is a core part of your day and you're good at it?
Thank you. I mean, that's very generous of you, Alexandra. I've got so much to learn from your sort of say energy
Aw.
and the way you are so vivacious. I wasn't sure about Instagram at all 2 years back when I started in this role. I had an inactive Instagram account. Maybe I had, four and a half followers at that point of time. Essentially, it came as a part of a business necessity. And that business necessity at that time was answering a question: as we go ahead and we want to attract millennials and Gen Z as entrepreneurs to Amway, how do I understand what they're doing, and how do I connect with them? because listen and learn and travel and face to face only is able to get me so much. Otherwise, I'm here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and in any corporate role, one can get involved a lot in internal stuff, especially one is in the sort of say the headquarters. So my team suggested, and thanks to them, said, Milind, why don't you try out Instagram? I said, you must be joking. LinkedIn, yes. Twitter, okay. But Instagram, I thought was just in for my role and my age, frankly, it didn't kind of seem natural. But we did. And here we are. I'm connected to 500 of our Amway business owners and entrepreneurs from across the world. I understand every day how they are building their business, how they're using our products to provide solutions in wellness and in beauty. What's working? They can communicate with me directly. It doesn't have to go through emails and memos through a hierarchical process, either within Amway or outside Amway with an independent distributor entrepreneur organization. And they can see what I'm doing.
Did it
So
make you uncomfortable though? I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to get at is like, when you have to do uncomfortable things to put yourself out there, what advice can you give other people? Because I think, like you said, you could start an Amway business with just a couple hundred people and
yes,
on your Instagram, for example. But all of that requires this sort of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm just wondering, you put yourself in so many situations. Instagram is one example, but to go from having no passport to China to all these different countries, what have you learned in terms of a framework of how to deal with things that a lot of people might say no to just because they're nervous or they feel like they can't. And women, I read this study how men might only be like 70 to 80% qualified for a job, but they'll still raise their hand. Females have to be like 200% qualified to even feel worthy to put their hand up. So that's what I'm trying to get at is like, give us your mental model. Like, what can we learn from that so that we can rinse and repeat and, grow and try new things?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if I have the perfect answer because personally I'm still work in progress,
Yeah.
Alexandra. But uh, I go back to the simple. It's a very simple concept of mindset. Is one in a growth mindset or is one in a fixed mindset? And part of it is being uncomfortable with the status quo. Part of it is looking at setbacks as an opportunity to learn. Part of it is to continue to learn all the time. I still remember, Alexandra, when I was in my early teen years, as I told you, we didn't have even a television at home, but my father was very keen that I learn English and I speak in English. So he would ask me to listen to BBC radio or read the morning newspaper, Times of India, at that point of time. And I don't think I did either of that well enough at that point of time. But today, that subliminal thing of what my parents taught me is alive and kicking. Every day, I read 5 to 7 online newspapers. So I would read, the Caixin out of China, the Bangkok Post, out of Thailand. I would read the Economic Times out of India. I would read the Nikkei Asia Journal out of Tokyo, Straits Times out of Singapore, Financial Times out of London, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. I would do all these every day. And by Thursday, 4 p.m., my online issue of The Economist hits my iPad. And I then keep my Thursday evening. My wife thinks I'm the most boring person in the world, okay, because that's all I can look forward to on a Thursday evening. But when I started reading The Economist, one issue was 2 weeks of my salary. I used to
Wow.
go for hand-me-downs. The VPs, the vice presidents and above in Unilever India would get a copy. I would make friends with their assistants And after they had read it and kind of returned it, I would get the dog-eared copies, but go through it because I couldn't buy one on my own, at least then. Today, Amway takes care of me so that I can get my own issue.
As many as you want, digital and hard copy.
But it's a continuous journey. I'm learning so much, listening to people on digital and technology. When I listen to Kai-Fu Lee on artificial intelligence,
It was a great book.
it's fast. It's a great book, right? Now
Yeah.
I'm wanting to understand more on climate change. So I'm in the midst of reading Bill Gates' book, but then
Yeah.
I don't know much about brain and gut connection because
Mm.
I didn't grow up. I don't think I did. I took my biology and college or high school seriously, but I want to now understand the my gut, brain and gut connection when Dr. Chopra talks about the vagus nerve, and then he connects modern science with yoga. I say, like, this is fascinating. It's all there and it's all coming together in a very holistic way of wellness. So there is so much to learn.
Yes.
And I think just being on that journey, just taking the first step, whatever is the right for a person, be it an Instagram post, be it picking up a book, be it, learning Excel, it could be anything, just taking the first step. And I think everyone does it very well. It's just taking the first step and having someone around who can help and be able to answer the questions.
Yeah. Speaking of reading and books, we do a little segment and now seems appropriate called CEO Binge Club. Because when I
Right.
started the show, we were just asking what are you reading? But since the pandemic has sort of come around, everyone's been binging as well. So what are you reading? What are you binging on? You've named a few, I think, really great books. And if I may actually, before I forget, add a suggestion on the brain gut connection. Dr. Uma Naidu is at the forefront of this research right now. I've had her on the show, but her book is incredible. Anyone listening who wants to hear it, go find that episode. She is actually nutritional psychology is something she basically created. So it's a very, very tactical, interesting book. But Milind, like, I'm so curious because you're just a voracious learner. In addition to the newspapers, what else are you consuming?
All as I said, as my wife Amrita says, all boring stuff mainly. But I was actually going to go back and look at some of the book videos that I had posted over the pandemic. So there are many of them, and they're all great. I think Carol Dweck's Mindset is
Yeah.
a very easy to read book.
And you've referenced that a few times. So, and I think I couldn't agree with you more. So, audience, if you haven't read the book, you may think you know what growth mindset is, but there's something really sort of juicy and interesting to kind of learn her framework. And clearly, it's something that's driven you, Milind. So, I think all of us are going to be clamoring, at least for me, to reread it. But are there any other books that you feel like maybe they're a little dated, but something along your journey that just really sat with you?
Well, you and I talked about AI superpowers of Kai
Yes,
Fu
that's a good
Lee.
one.
There's a book by David Epstein, Range,
Yes, someone else
which
recommended that. I haven't read it yet.
it's a fascinating book, and essentially talks about how Roger Federer, on one hand, has a range. He started off actually playing soccer, and came to tennis only in his late teens, compared to, let's say, Tiger Woods, who since he was a little child was focused on golf. And as the world gets more complex, we need to have more things with range. So range is a great one. There is one by Clayton Christensen, who wrote a lot of books on innovators' dilemma. But this book I really like. It's How Will You Measure Your Life?
Ooh.
It's a very nice book. Um, we talk a lot in Amway about heart styles and leading with love and humility. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a book called Above the Line by someone I've known for a long time, Stephen Clemich, which is about leading from the heart, which is great. There is Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is good. If you're looking for an optimist view of the world, I would say read Factfulness by Hans Rosling. Again, a great book. If one is looking at humanity and our history as Homo sapiens, then I would recommend Sapiens by Yuval Hariri. It's a great book. As I said, I'm still in the midst of reading Bill Gates' new book on climate change. I think that's a path-breaking book. That's an important one. But there are so many across the world and across time. There's so many books out there. Here's my sort of the cheat sheet on it. I look at the twice a year Bill Gates recommendation.
Yeah.
One that comes out just before summer and the other before winter, to look at the breadth of books that I can choose from. And then for business books, I'll look at the Financial Times McKinsey annual business book recommendations that come out. But there are so many other places to go to, including the New York Times bestseller for the books.
I think that's super helpful. You've mentioned when you were on your listening and learning tour that you sort of went to your gurus and your mentors. I think that that's kind of a skill, learning how to sort of approach a mentor early on in your career and develop and build a relationship. Do you have any tips for maybe young people or not so young people that are looking to sort of build relationships with mentors or just kind of punch above their weight a little bit?
You said it. Just don't hesitate. Keep working at it. And sometimes, frankly, one gets lucky. And I'll give you one example of that, which may sound very amusing. This was a couple of years back. By the way, for the last 25, 30 years, I've been reading books by Ram Charan,
Okay.
right? I mean, one book that I would recommend is called Execution. It probably came out 20, 25 years back, probably before most of your listeners were born. It's by Larry Bossidy and Ram Charan. Ram Charan is a fantastic guru. I've been reading his books for 2.5 decades. A couple of years back, I was coming back, I think it was from Sao Paulo. I landed up in Dallas where we used to live. And as I was walking out, to take my Uber, I suddenly saw a person sitting there and a face looked familiar. So I just walked up to him and I said, "Are you Ram?" He said,
Wow.
"Yes, I am." I said, "I'm Milind, whatever, so and so, I live in Dallas. I've been reading your books." He said, "Hey, why don't you sit down? I'm waiting for my car to pick me up." And thank God his car was delayed. We chatted for half an hour.
Wow.
And since then, we've been in touch. So the doors can open up in various ways. Just seize the opportunity, and also there will be 100 no's before one gets a yes, and that shit's fine. One will surely learn from that, and even those who say no, it's probably their bad as much as not to getting to know, someone who's trying to get to know people and learn from their experience.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Also, there is a book that I'm remembering listening to your story. It's by Keith Ferrazzi. It's Never Eat Alone, and it has a lot of tactical tips for people just kind of figuring out how to meet other people. It's probably a tiny bit dated now, but still really interesting. And then age old Dale Carnegie. My parents took the course, and when I was a little girl, before the internet, people, I was flipping through it. But honestly, those books changed my life as a young person. There's one that's How to Win Friends and Influence People, which
Well,
I still think is a
it's a great
classic.
book.
I'm trying to bribe my son to read it, but it's not
Yeah.
working. So I'm open for tips. What would you say is like your winning mantra? Like reading all these books, living this like rich professional and personal life, like what's the one winning mantra?
I don't know if there is one mantra alone, frankly, but your question does take me down memory lane. Um, when I was 10-year-old, I joined a new middle school. And at that time we used to speak Hindi at home, and this was a middle school run by Catholic brothers and sisters. And I walked up to it, and on the coat of arms was written "Certa Bonum, Certa Men." Now I didn't even follow English well, so leave alone trying to understand Latin. It is later that in school that I understood that means fight the good fight. Now, during my school years, we only used it for inter-school soccer tournaments, that rallying cry of "Certa Bonum, Certa Men." But I think in all our lives, as we go through our life, and then at some stage be of help to others, I think it's about fighting the good fight every day. When my colleagues and I in Amway wake up each day, we wake up to fight the good fight for a young lady somewhere in the world with a
Yeah.
sparkle in her eyes who wants to be the Lisa, the confident Lisa that you talked about. That is to fight the good fight for us. And for every one of your listeners, there will be a fight the good fight for themselves, their family, and then beyond that, that may be something worth having as an option for life's mantra.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful and so, so true. You know, on my sort of final thought bubble for our chat today, I can't remember the context, but I think like a week ago I was on a Zoom. It wasn't an interview, it was something from my own businesses, and somebody started talking about unfair advantages. And it got me thinking about how the unfair advantages in our life oftentimes are things we don't expect, and I think these are things we should focus on because they'll propel us in our goals and our dreams. Milind, as you look back on your life and, maybe you've had some perspective now that you're not in the air every other day traveling, what do you think were your unfair advantages?
I think I had many, many unfair advantages. I think if I was to reflect back on my life, my parents and the value system or the sanskar that was inculcated from early years was an unfair advantage. My teachers, many of them who I fondly remember, was an unfair advantage. My opportunities that Unilever in India gave me, and subsequently Yum, was an unfair advantage. My wife Amrita, my sons, and their unconditional love. We've moved home 12 times in 25 years of marriage. That's an unfair advantage. So
Yeah.
I think there are so many advantages one has had in life, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of those.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful spot to sort of wrap up. But, how can people connect with you?
Well, people can connect me with me in various ways. The easiest is on Instagram at Milind Pant. But if you're looking for something which is more longer format, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. If there are any listeners of yours in China, you can connect with me on Weibo.
Um, Follow him because he gives these cooking tutorials every now and then. Are you still cooking, Milind? Are you like the rest of us who are just sick of the kitchen after this pandemic?
Well, Amrita says that I cook less, but I show up. It shows up even more on Instagram than I actually do. But
That's
I have started enjoying it because what's happened is with the pandemic, I've moved predominantly to a plan forward diet. So it's again like a Kal Chakra. I'm going back to where my grandparents started in life in terms of diet, and I feel healthier, I feel fitter. And a lot of it is Indian food now, or Mediterranean food. But it's great, and between that and spending time at home, uh, it's uh, it's actually been quite nice. Even though the first few months were tiring, emotionally tiring, but
yeah.
come summer last year, I think we got into a rhythm, and it's been okay since then.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching one of your cooking videos, and this is how I actually think you do cook more than you lead on, because you know where things were. Like you didn't ask anyone, you knew where the knife was. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's very generous of you.
Well, Milind, thanks for joining me today. I think, your story itself is so inspiring, and I love what you're doing at Amway. I'm a huge, huge believer in people figuring out ways to level up their life in whatever way works for them. And I think direct selling businesses in general is another path forward for people. So thank you for sharing all of that with us today.
Same here. It was just fun and a pleasure speaking with you. You are such an accomplished entrepreneur and an
Aw,
inspiration
thank
for
you.
men and women across the world in America and India. It's truly great to get a chance to speak with you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. It's a wrap.